Hello and welcome to the second episode of One Day Later. This time around I'm looking at the Royal Rumble 2010, but before I start I want to say that I haven't listened to any of the reviews for this pay-per-view. I've been sorely tempted though because I'm eager to see what the people I'm subscribed to think of it. Suffice it to say, after I get through this I'll be spending the rest of the day watching your reviews and making comments. So without further ado, let's get into it. They start off the show with a decent promotional package, but honestly, they have to do little to get me excited for the Rumble itself. I'm not a fan of the music they chose to use. I don't know who the artist is, but if their other songs are like this one, I have no interest in knowing. The first match of the night is Christian defending his ECW title against Ezekiel Jackson. On a side note, someone had a small sign that had the Geek Squad logo with Peep in place of Geek, which I thought was pretty clever and amusing. If you've never heard of Ezekiel, don't feel too bad. While he's been an employee since 2008, he's floundered around the roster with no real purpose. First as a bodyguard advisor for the Brian Kendrick on SmackDown, and then eventually as part of William Regal's entourage on ECW when he was sent to the C Show mid-2009. It's a mild conundrum creative is just getting around to moving him up the ladder because Ezekiel has everything Vince usually looks for when grooming talent for the big league. He's big and muscular. Despite me having only seen a few of his matches, here he proves that he has just enough talent to mold into a workable wrestler. Keeping him with Regal is the smart move, at least for now. Ezekiel and Christian have some history, so him winning the number one contender Battle Royal 2 weeks ago isn't out of the realm of believability. Things pick up about midway through the match, and it's given just enough time to pull the audience in. What I think this match lacks is the oomph needed to really get the crowd riled for the rest of the show. This probably would have worked better if it was the second or third match. And at some point in the near future, Christian should think about developing a new finishing move. I've never been a fan of the unprettier kill switch, whatever they want to call it. It just seems like it's too easy of a move to break out of. I'd also like to see Ezekiel add a few more moves to his arsenal, and even though he doesn't win here, I fully expect him to get another shot at the title very soon. I'm giving this a 6 out of 10. After that, Crime Time tried to get both of them into the Rumble, and the fact that they're not vying for the tag team titles is a crime. Then some time is wasted between Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes concerning Ted DiBiase. Up next, The Miz defends his US title against MVP thanks to Teddy Long announcing it at the last minute. Thankfully, both men have been trading words back and forth on Raw the last few weeks, so the match isn't completely out of the blue. MVP keeps Miz on his toes and refuses to let him get a moment to rest and recuperate, which makes sense considering that both men will be in the Rumble later. It begs the question though, why throw these men in a separate match when there are other men that won't even be on the card? It's a decent 10 or so minute match, but it feels like filler, and for a title match, that's bad. I'm giving this a 6 out of 10. Sheamus defends his WWE title against Randy Orton in a match that has me scratching my head. 2 weeks ago, Randy won a triple threat number one contenders match between him, John Cena, and Kofi Kingston, which feels more like a swerve just for the sake of it than one that makes a whole lot of sense. Is it an attempt to make Randy a face, or WWE's way of saying, oh look, anything can happen? Surprisingly, the crowd actually cheers for him here, so okay, it could work, but is now the best time to do it? If they want to build to Randy facing Ted DiBiase at WrestleMania, I'd say no. Better to keep him the heel, which he excels at, with DiBiase as the face. The end sees Sheamus retained via disqualification when Cody Rhodes tries to interfere on Orton's behalf but gets caught by the referee. It's a weak ending, and if the writers expect to build Sheamus as a viable champion, it's the worst thing to do. But considering that they'd pretty much painted themselves into a corner with this match to begin with, it's understandable they decided to end it this way. Post-match, Ted comes down to intervene when Randy attacks Cody, which doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense since earlier both men were talking smack about each other to Orton. It's a pretty ho-hum match that did very little to keep my interest. I'm giving this a 5 out of 10. After that, Michelle McCool defends her women's title against Mickie James, Both women have had a long-running war of words concerning Mickey's non-existent weight issues. You know, because that's all WWE thinks women should be concerned about. Michelle has done a decent job at playing the bully, but the problem is that Michelle has a horrible voice, and at times it just feels way too forced. It's also not a storyline that flatters either women or really draws in the audience. This almost qualifies as a non-match. Instead of getting into it, Mickey and her cohort Layla waste a couple of minutes continuing the mockery. Mickey comes down and beats Michelle in 30 seconds, winning the title, and then gains a modicum of revenge with the help of the other divas. Okay, what's the point? This is a Raw segment. I realize Michelle isn't the greatest wrestler, but I have to imagine she could at least pull out a half-decent job at giving Mickey a run for her money. There have been rumors of Mickey leaving to pursue a career in country music, so perhaps this was WWE's way of asking her to stay. For my money, though, it's too little too late, and I think Mickey should just move on because she, like most of the other women wrestlers there with talent, isn't being utilized to her fullest advantage. I'm giving this a 3 out of 10. Up next, Undertaker defends his World Heavyweight title against Rey Mysterio. Rey had won a Beat the Clock challenge weeks earlier on SmackDown. Even on paper, this doesn't look like a very good matchup. Both men are suffering from nagging injuries, so I expect a slow match with short bursts of energy, which is what we got. Early in the match, Taker busts his nose, and I think WWE learned their lesson because they didn't halt the match to stop him from bleeding. The end sees Taker retain, which I had no doubts about, but it does come out of nowhere. Rey gives Taker 2 619s and then goes for a West Coast pop, only for Taker to counter it into a last ride to pick up the win. It's a passable 10-minute match, but again, it didn't draw me in or make me wonder what could happen. I'm giving this a 6 out of 10. Finally, we come to the main event, the Royal Rumble. 30 men enter, but only one man walks away with a title shot at WrestleMania. I won't bore you with the order of entry or an elimination, but I will state some fun facts. Both Shawn Michaels and CM Punk tied for the number of solo eliminations, 5, though HBK did have an assist by Triple H with eliminating Drew McIntyre. Beth Phoenix was the second woman ever to participate in the Rumble, the other being Chyna. The final 4, Edge, John Cena, Shawn Michaels, and Batista, have all had multiple title reigns. Was it a good Rumble? No, not really. The only surprise entrance was Edge, who I'm happy to see is in better health, but I figured there'd be at least one other. The final 4 were all veterans, which is a bit disappointing. The fact that Matt Hardy was so quickly eliminated left a really bad taste in my mouth. As a matter of fact, too many people were quickly eliminated, and it never felt too chaotic. I'm okay with Edge being the winner since he's never won before, but I really think they should have given it to someone who hasn't been in the title picture, Kofi Kingston or John Morrison. And honestly, this isn't the first time someone's returned from injury to win the Rumble. They just did it 2 years ago with Cena, so it's not like it's innovative or shockingly exciting. It could have been worse, but it sure could have been better. I'm giving this a 5 out of 10. Overall, the 2010 Royal Rumble is pretty average. There's really nothing on this card that piqued my interest going in, and coming out, nothing felt very satisfying. Should you buy the replay? Absolutely not. Should you buy the DVD? Pick it up if and when it's on sale, or maybe used. Otherwise, it's just not worth your time. I'm giving this a 5 out of 10. Thank you for listening. Please tune in again when I look at another wrestling pay-per-view one day later.